All right, guys. So I'm excited for today's next level and TLA group combined efforts. We're going to be kind of mixing and mashing the two together for purposes of, sharing some hot ideas and some game planning, strategic planning for next summer. What we're going to be sharing from a business specific standpoint is digging into some interview scenarios. We've been working and role playing and drilling for skill, the group interview, but we're talking about some interview scenarios that can come up around running them, and then we're going to dig in a little bit to our team builder / jump start to the summer for creating quality recruits. So we're going to be digging into both of those, and then from a personal development standpoint, we're going to be digging in and talking a little bit more about finances and ways that you can save money as a college student. Because this is personal, professional, and financial growth. So we're going to dig into that. So so let's go ahead and start off with some budgeting for college student type exercises, because as a college student, it's easy to spend money on the big 5 F's, right? Things like fuel, fun, food, friends, family. But it's also important to make sure that you're budgeting the right way. We've already kind of come up with creating your budget. Now it's talking about ways to kind of minimize it, because the 2 ways that you can increase your savings and your profit, number one is to increase what's coming in. So driving up revenue. How do you increase revenue? Well, that's going to be things like selling Cutco. Could be things like selling things you already own, right? Like pawning things, or selling off extra shoes or extra electronics that you don't need or don't use. But for most of us, it's going to involve around selling more knives, right? So selling more Cutco. And then the other way to increase your profit is being better with your expenses. Okay, so college student expenses can be kind of out of control. So I've got 27 tips for you to be able to save money as a college student. So let's go over these different ways that you could save money. Okay, the first one is to make sure that if you're going to save some money, you want to make sure that you first of all have a bank account where money is going into. If you've already got a bank account, make sure that a savings account has also been added to that. In that savings account, you want it to be something that's ideally attached to your checking, but there is some sort of system of checks and balances associated with it, meaning that the money doesn't just immediately pull. I know that that's kind of a common, exciting, new thing that's come out for young professionals, is the ability to have overdraft protection from your savings account. And while that is nice, the challenge is that people spend through their checking knowing that they've got backup in their savings. Right. And if it's easier to not spend it because you don't want to hit that threshold, that'll be easier. With regards to credit and devolving credit, I do think it is important at an early age to start establishing credit, and ways that you can establish credit. If you've got a store that you routinely shop at for necessities, meaning like, for example, groceries or gas or other places like that. And, that's usually a very easy way to get approved for a very entry-level credit card to start building credit. Here's the thing, guys. You don't want it to be one where you have a high limit, because you'll be tempted to kind of blow through it and rack that thing up. But you do want to have some credit, because if you want to get approved for pretty much anything, you need to have some sort of credit established. My advice would be that you get something like a gas credit card, or one through like Kroger, Target even, where you just get like one of their store cards, so that way you're only using it for necessities and you pay it off immediately. But that starts to help you with money management. Okay. Here's the other thing. Avoid non-academic debt at all costs. So what I mean by that is don't get a credit card for the purpose of buying stuff. You know, the reason somebody would get a credit card is so that way they could start establishing a little bit of credit, but then they're not using it while they're spending their day-to-day. Okay, so you use it to establish credit, but not to run up debt. Okay, so make sure you're always paying it off in full. Keep the balance at a low level so that way you're never having to worry about it racking up over time. The next thing that I've got on here is making sure that you save first and then spend. Okay, so save first and then spend. How do you save first and then spend? A couple ways. You've got your company withholdings. Make sure you're on some sort of tax percentage holdings. It could be 10%, it could be 20%, it could be 50%, right? But make sure that you've got that set up. Mari's got $7,000, I think, right now on your withholdings, right? And part of that was because you do what? 50% of what?
Yeah,
50% of what you're selling is going towards your savings. So that way, even when you're balling out, selling a lot, you're living frugally. So save first before spending. So set up that account. That's one way to save before you spend. Another way to save before you spend is whenever you have something that you want to spend money on that's not a necessity, right? Necessities being food, phone, right? Pretty much what most students have is food, phone, and if they have rent or something. But if it's anything outside of like your necessities, make sure that you take that amount of money and double it before you buy it. Okay, so let's say, for example, you want to buy an Xbox or a PlayStation, or you want to buy a cool pair of J's or something like that. And let's say that's $200. Well, make sure that you, before spending that 200, you raise 400 so that you can put 200 away before spending the extra two. You know, one of the beautiful ways to do it in our business is take whatever it would take you to sell to make that amount of money to pay for whatever it is that you want to buy, double it, and then save, and then you put money in to buy whatever you want. Last tip is always make sure you pay your bills on time. Something that, you know, I ran into a lot when I was a newer business owner and kind of living on my own for the first time was I had the money, but sometimes I would just forget. So it wasn't like I didn't have the money. It wasn't like I was, you know, needing to hold off for purposes of not spending. It's just that I would forget when the due date was for some of my bills. So what I would do is set an alarm in your phone or a reminder in your calendar app to remind you every month a week beforehand of your due date. So if you have, for example, a credit card or a phone bill, or you have some sort of recurring charge that comes up each month, make sure to set a reminder so that a week before you can pay it. I have this same thing happen to this day with like my car payment and any and all of my credit cards. I'll get a reminder at least a week beforehand so that way I can pay it. Or if I need to, I can move money out of some savings to have it there so that I pay it, right? So I've always got it a week, you know, I guess a week ahead of time. So I'm not stressing out. And I'm also not getting tagged with those late charges, because late charges can be a bitch, guys. I mean, it can be 10, 15, 20% in some cases if you're not paying it. With credit cards, that interest can be kind of one of the things that you get hit with. So making sure that you're doing that. Another money tip for students is to make sure you're tracking your spending. We already talked about this, but using that budget. Now, everybody, I believe, has sent the budget to me. I think I've got most everybody's. If I haven't, you know, make sure you do that. But, you know, once you've got that budget sent, then what you want to make sure you're doing is that you're finding ways to minimize some of the things that you have on there. Now, you know, it's so funny. Sometimes just that hot poker of truth hits you and you're like, oh, man. You know, I had no idea I was spending blank on blank. Imagine what I could have done with that money if I had instead saved it, or if instead I'd used it something better. And I found for most students, again, it's usually eating out that is the one that kind of like slaps them in the face of like, damn it, right? Going out and partying is another one, right? Ubering everywhere could be another one. So just, taking a look at that. The next money tip I've got for you is save your receipts, especially in our business. One of the great ways to save a lot of money is just holding on to your receipts. If you've got a credit card that you use for things, you can always use that and use your statements, as you're figuring out what you can and can't write off. But hold on to them. You'll be able to compare them. But also, guys, make sure that you're checking your statements with your receipts. You'll be amazed at how often the charges don't quite match up. Like little things can happen, right? The company accidentally puts too much that you put down as a tip. They read your handwriting wrong and they add a bunch more. You get charged for something you didn't do. That happens. I've had that happen a couple times. So just saving your receipts are important. The last thing with regards to kind of organization for money tips is make sure that you guard your vital stats. Meaning, you have your don't give out your Social Security or credit card. Just you keep it hidden or away. Have it memorized, right? Have your Social Security number memorized. But I would not carry around my Social Security card in my wallet, for example, right? If you've got it as a notes tab or something in your phone, that's probably fine. But I would not save the note as Social Security number, right? You could put it under whatever you want to do. You could do, like, I know for me, I keep all my loyalty numbers that I use for like travel for like SPG and Delta, like my Sky Miles numbers. I have all those in there. And so that would be a place where maybe you throw a number, right? And only you'll know what that number is, but you put that number in there. Or you save it as a contact in your phone as like Sophia or something, right? Where or you know what I'm talking about, Senorita Securita or whatever. But have it set up somewhere where only you are going to know how to find it, so that you have access to it. But ideally, you get it memorized. And once you get it memorized, then you're good. You just don't care whether you keep it in a safe or keep it somewhere out of arm's reach. Keep it with your parents, for example. Have them put it in their safe. Credit card information, right? I would never take a picture of your credit card and send it. There's really no reason to ever do that now, because a lot of times, people's phones are just laying out and you never know what's going to happen. So just keep your vital stats kind of guarded. With regards to campus life, there's definitely hundreds of things that are going on in and around campus that compete for your money. It's hard to know what to do. So here's kind of some smart ways to save money when you're on campus. Always buy used books. That is one of those things, guys. I would never buy a brand new textbook if I could avoid it. In fact, I went so cheap when I was in college. Just one time I dropped a class because that professor was mandating that we buy brand new books. And I was just like, you know what? Not going to do it, and even better, if you don't need to buy them, take the kids that go to school whose parents do buy them the books and get them from them either for free or rent them for dirt cheap. I know I had, one of my buddies who was a year older than me at Carolina. He had taken some classes that I also was going to have to take. And I said, hey, man, is it cool if I use your textbook for the semester? And he was like, I don't know. I might reference it. And I'm like, dude, I'll buy you a 6-pack of beer. He's like, sure. It cost me a 6-pack of beer. I guess this is being recorded, whatever. But it cost me that to be able to use that textbook for an entire semester. That would have cost me used $150, right? So, borrowing books from friends. A lot of the libraries will have copies of the textbooks in the library, and you just got to go to the library to check them out and be able to reserve them and use them. So, always going cheap with textbooks, never buying new. You'll end up, what ends up happening is you're just going to end up selling them back at the end of the term if you buy them anyway or buy them new. And and you'll wish you'd have done that 5 years later if you didn't, because you'll be moving and you'll have all these textbooks from school that you're never using ever again. It's like, damn it, I probably should have sold these. Now they're not even taking them back, right? So, so it's important to do that. The second thing on saving money while you're in school is be careful who you hang out with. So don't hang out with the big spenders. There's going to be some kids you'll go to school with whose parents have big, deep pockets. And I'll tell you, it's easy to get caught up in the one-upmanship or the competing with the Joneses. If you're hanging out with a group of friends and every weekend they're going out to the bars, or every weekend they're going out to the clubs, or every weekend they're going to some new sporting event or some new this or some new concert, and that just becomes kind of the expectation and the norm, that can get very, very expensive. So that can lead you to spend more than you can honestly afford, nor should you spend, right? And even if you can't afford it, doesn't mean you should afford it. I've seen people do that. Well, do I have the money in my account? Well, then let me go do it. Well, that money could be used for other things. It's more productive in the long run. Okay? Here's the other one. Take advantage of the free activities that happen in and around campus. You'll be amazed at how often organizations are giving away free food or free lunches, or they'll have free activities or events that happen on a Friday or Saturday that you could take advantage of that cost you little to nothing. There's free movie festivals that'll happen. There could be free concerts that take place. There's extracurriculars, going to the gym on campus versus attending another or signing up for a membership for another gym. So take advantage of the amenities that are there already on campus. And then, the other thing that I've got down here is with spring break, guys, either win your trip for free, like through Cutco, right? I mean, next year's spring break is going to be friggin' Paris for you if you do the right things next summer. That is the national trip that we're doing. It's always around spring break. And I can't think of a more epic spring break than to go to Europe, basically for free, because you did what you're supposed to do, right? Or even if you don't go for free, you're going for a much cheaper way than you would do if you paid for it on your own. My last 2 years in college, I was able to go to Italy. Actually, last 3 years. So it was Italy, Hawaii, and then Cabo. Those are some pretty cool places to do for spring break. My freshman year, I ended up spending more money on spring break than I did any of the other three. Why? Because I wanted to go to the Bahamas, so we found a cheap, inexpensive way to go. But then two of my buddies weren't working with Cutco, didn't have very much money, and I ended up having to pay them for them to go so that we could take the trip. And then on top of it, they never paid me back. Well, one of them did pay me back. The other one didn't pay me back. So it's one of those things where, it costs you a lot more to go do spring break than it would be to either do something with the company or to work on your business. So either skipping spring break or doing something close to home that's cheap and inexpensive to save money. On a personal note, to save money while you're in school, if you're signed up for class, go to class. I think that's something, if you're investing your time, money, and energy to be a student, will actually go to class. I will tell you this, if you're not in class, there's a good chance you're probably doing something that's going to cost you money, or you're sleeping, right? Which probably isn't, making you money either. But go to class, and the reason it does that is by going to class and being involved, it keeps you busy, just gets you in the habit. Second thing with personal life is stay busy with extracurriculars that are positive. Okay? What I mean by staying busy with extracurriculars that are positive, that would be things like doing demos, coming into the office to work on skill sets. It would be, things like, going to the gym, writing for the school newspaper, doing things that, if it sounds fun to you, go ahead and do it, but don't do things that involve you just going out and spending money. Things like going shopping, things like going to the bars, that stuff. Next one, staying active. I will say this, a healthy body costs way less money and far less to maintain than an unhealthy body. You don't have to do much to avoid gaining weight in college, but by not exercising, not taking care of yourself, you will. Here's the other thing: if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not staying active, what ends up happening is you end up spending a lot of money on things like, oh, for example, caffeine, right? Going to get coffee, Starbucks, energy drinks, all those cost a lot of money. Why do those cost a lot of money? Because they're expensive to make, and they know that people get hooked on them. And so if you if you just spend $3 a day, that may not sound like a lot, but over the course of an entire month, that's an extra $100 that you're spending just to have a little bit more energy, which you could easily have if you're eating just decent food and you're exercising and you're getting to bed at a decent hour instead of going on Netflix, right? So all of those things can can give you more energy that doesn't involve you having to necessarily take caffeine, right? So a little bit of caffeine is not bad for you, but if you're like crashing and burning all the time, you probably want to make sure you're taking care of your health first before you start just pumping it full of more and more caffeine. Other thing, guys, eating healthy and on a fixed budget. Okay, so here's things that you could spend money on that are healthy, but they fill you up and they work well. And all this could be done for like less than $30. Grabbing prepackaged chicken breasts, right? So the frozen chicken breasts from the frozen aisle cost you $8. You usually get about 6 big chicken breasts that each provides about 2 meals worth of protein. So if you think about that, if you buy a pack of 6 for $8, that's 12 protein portions, about $1.50 per meal for protein portions. Okay? That's an inexpensive meal to eat. Canned tuna is another inexpensive protein source for you. Now you don't want to do canned tuna all the time, but it is healthy in its spurts, right? So canned tuna is pretty inexpensive. Ground turkey is another inexpensive way to eat healthy, get the protein that you need. Then black beans and rice. You can buy an entire big ass package of beans for like $1 or $2. A big thing of rice for about the same. You mix them together. Together, they'll make a complete protein for you with a lot of your essential amino acids. Helps you with energy, helps you with satiation. And you add a little bit of chicken, add a little bit of tuna. It fills you up pretty well. Okay. Spinach, lettuce. You're not getting much from lettuce. Spinach, you are getting more from. Both of them are inexpensive, though. They kind of fill you up. Okay. Green beans, corn, all that stuff's really cheap. Okay. And if you get, a couple of cans of each, or you buy it fresh and you just make it yourself, it can last you for multiple meals. If you have questions, Caitlin's got a kick-ass taco bowl recipe that she can share with you that's super inexpensive and can feed you for a long time. And it gets you a little bit of pretty much everything that you need if you throw a little bit of spinach on there. Okay. In addition to that, oatmeal in the morning for breakfast. Eggs are also really inexpensive. So if you did breakfast of oatmeal, eggs, or yogurt, eggs, you did, some of these proteins and lean leafy lettuces and beans and rice, you're going to fill yourself up, and it's really inexpensive. If you need extra carbs, maybe you're trying to bulk up, or you just have metabolism of a young kid, and you can just eat whatever. Pastas are really inexpensive to buy. What's that? Rice. Yeah, rice as well. Stay away from ramen, guys. I know it's really cheap, and you can do it, but the problem with that, guys, is there's so much sodium in the contents of the seasoning label. There was a study done by I think it was done in Britain, where a British woman who was 30 years old had eaten nothing but ramen noodles from the time that she was 16 until the time she was 30. That was all she ate, was ramen, right? Probably saved a lot of money. But they looked at her internal organs, and they found that she had the internal organs of a 75-year-old at the age of 30. Yeah, it was pretty grim. So So again, in a pinch, you're probably okay. But if you don't want that to be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So oatmeal's good. Grits are decent. And you can, again, buy this stuff in big prepackaged form where it's really cheap and it fills you up and you save money. I mean, we're talking for $30 or probably at your age, $20 to $25 a week, you could feed yourself for an entire week, which is less than $5 a day. Which is awesome. It basically be like some of you guys are spending currently on, Starbucks. So eating healthy is good. Also limit your vices. Other healthy starches, just so you know, are sweet potatoes and regular potatoes. But anyway, limit your vices: beer, cigarettes, pot. All that stuff's expensive. Jewel pods. They screw with your head. They screw with your body. It doesn't make you the best version of yourself. And I've had people tell me all the time, oh, it's not that big a deal. And you're right. Anything in moderation is probably okay, but it definitely doesn't make you the best version of yourself, right? For example, there's not any studies that have shown, oh, this person never drank a sip of alcohol in their life, and look at how horrible they are inside, right? Like there's never been a single study for that. There's a lot of studies say this person smoked cigarettes their whole life and got away with it. And yes, you can get away with things, but do you really want to get away with it? Or do you want to flourish, right? And if you're trying to save money, because this is a financial talk, not a personal vices talk, but if you're trying to save money, that is one of the areas you can cut that really, truly does save you a ton. If you've ever been out with anybody at a Mexican restaurant, and they've had margaritas and look at the bill at the end, usually the alcohol is about as much as the food that they eat. Okay. So again, if you're saving money, limit the vices, right? There's nothing wrong with having a drink or two on a Friday, but just don't go overboard. Learn the art of the cheap date. Okay. So get creative with dates. What are cheap dates? Taking advantage of Mother Nature, going to parks, what's that?
Movie pass.
Getting the movie pass, right? Yeah, I guess you could do the movie pass. Going out for breakfast is a much cheaper date usually or going out for coffee is a much cheaper date than going out for a nice Italian dinner with a bottle of wine and other stuff, right? 10 campus events. You can use City Search or Yelp or other places to find inexpensive date nights. The other thing that you could do, guys, is go for fun activity-based stuff, right? So, for example, here in Atlanta, we've got the Beltline. You can go walk the Beltline, run the Beltline, take a bike around the Beltline. Again, super inexpensive. You're getting out in Mother Nature, and it makes sense. So you do want to make sure that you are having fun. That is obviously important, guys. I mean, you're kind of some of those formative years of your life, and make the most of them. But what I will say is just make sure you're being smart about what you're spending. There's so many inexpensive ways that you can go out and have a lot of fun. So decision making, this is decision making tips for financial budgeting. Number one, before you buy something, research to see if you can find it for cheaper. Just because you're in a store and you see something, you may be able to find it cheaper. Look on Amazon.com, for example. If you know you need something, look it up there. If you have to buy something clothing based, see if there's cheaper alternatives. Ask yourself this question: is it worth 7 times what I'm paying for it before you buy it? Okay. One of the tips I've read before is ask yourself, do you need it? What I would rather you do is say, instead of saying, do you need it? Ask yourself, is it worth 7 or 8 times what I want for it? And for most of your cases at your age, with the rate of compounding money, it's probably worth a little bit more, like 15 times. So whatever you're buying, times it by 15, and that's about what that would be worth if you save that money instead of splurging on it. At my age that I'm at right now, it's probably about 8 times or 7 or 8 times what I buy is what it would be worth if I instead took that money and invested it, right? So ask yourself, is it worth that amount? On top of that, and this is also important, have some sort of system of checks and balances, that $100 rule. So with your DM, DVM, institute a $100 rule. Before you buy something, you know, if it's more than $100, text your manager. Give them a call. I found sometimes, guys, just a simple act of thinking about texting it makes people realize, you know what? This is dumb. You know, I probably shouldn't spend this. Okay. So have some sort of system of checks and balances there to make sure that it's important. Last couple things that I've got for you on this is, and this was kind of a simple one, spend less than you earn. Always do that. Always spend less than you earn. So if you've got a budget, okay, if you've got a budget, you know, make sure that you are always exceeding that weekly amount that you need to be selling in order to cover what you need for that month or for that week in expenses. So for example, if you find out that you're spending about $500 a month or $1,000 a month and you're at 30%, you know, if you break that out or reverse it out, $1,000 is basically that you have to sell about $3,500 for the month to cover it. So that's roughly $850 a week is what you need to sell in order to cover your expenses. So make sure you're always selling more than what you need to cover what you need to buy. Okay. Along with that, guys, is be an outstanding, worker. I know this kind of goes along with making money, but if you're excelling, if you're being outstanding, that's how you get promoted. So not only does selling more help you in the here and now, but it also helps you in the next several months. You know, because there's going to be certain people, there's going to be certain times where, you know, you're working hard, but somebody else may be stepping up and working a little bit harder. And that little bit extra could be the difference between them getting promoted and you not getting promoted. And that's not just with Cutco, by the way. You know, so if you're always doing outstanding work, that's going to get noticed by the right people in the right business, and you're going to get promoted. Opportunities are going to come to you. So while other people may be slacking in certain areas, ask yourself, is this the best version of me in my work role? And then you step up and make sure that it is. Okay? And then the last thing, like I say, guys, is learning to invest your money. So, you know, using those buckets of money conversation that we talked about at the last prep and putting money towards it. What we're going to do on October 20th is we're going to review the BM pay package. And I'm going to give you guys some examples of different organizations and different offices that sold at different levels. And we're going to show you, you know, the real exciting profit opportunity that you have as small business owners. But you want to make sure that in addition to that, you're also following the steps of investing. So getting, you know, your emergency account funded, getting your, you know, withholding account funded. After that, you're getting any long-term savings and retirement accounts funded, you know, and doing that in the proper order so that way you're making a big difference. The other thing that it does is, I know for me what it did at least, is it kept me from getting complacent. See, if when I had all this extra money, I then took it and put it into different buckets and made sure that it was accounted for in different areas, it kept me hungry in the here and now because I knew, hey, I didn't have just a bunch of money just sitting there. You know, if it was just sitting in a savings account for me, then I'd be like, I can chill. Not that big a deal. But instead, if I was putting that money to work in different ways, it got me excited about trying to hit that next benchmark and that next savings target and that next retirement goal, right? So, you know, it now becomes a game where it's like, at what age could I retire if I wanted to? Is it 40? Is it 45? Is it 50? What is the number going to be? You know, it's pretty funny is when I was first 16, 17, 18, I put it based on I had a password that was associated with retiring by a certain age, you know, and it, you know, it had the number and it had like the actual date of how old I would be at that, you know, and it was like, that was part of my password on all my files, right? Or all my accounts. Cause I was like, man, bam, 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 bam. I started working towards it. Well, then it got to a place where like, oh shit, I might be able to move that timeline forward a little bit. I didn't change my passwords, but it was like, you know, but it was kind of cool to be able to think about that. So, well, maybe I can retire at 40. you know, and and so so started moving things earlier. So learning to be smart with your money and investing it, because 10 years from now you'll thank yourself. 20 years from now you'll really thank yourself, and then 30 years from now you'll be able to enjoy it because of the smart decisions that you made when you were a little bit younger. Okay, it's pretty crazy how much you can take advantage of compounding interest by being smart with your money and being frugal with what you buy. The stuff that you buy right now, 10 years from now, you'll look back on it and be like, damn, why did I buy this? There's especially some of the clothes and some of the extra things, like you'll look back and be like, why did I get this? But you won't be thinking about that stuff that you put away and you save. So, so being smart with your money is really important, especially at a young age. So let's transition into some some exercises and some scenarios with regards to the group interview. Okay, and so let's do a couple of them. We've talked a little bit about the group interview. I sent out the link for running effective group interviews last week, and I believe everybody has seen it, watched it, hopefully sent me their takeaways for it. But on the group interview or during the group interview, there's occasional scenarios that will happen that you want to make sure you're addressing properly. So if you got something to take notes on, let's list these out. So the first one is a scenario where somebody comes into the office with a parent. Okay, you'll occasionally see this. And so if somebody comes into the office with mom or with dad, let's talk about what should you do in that case.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, make sure you introduce yourself, right? Do realize, guys, there's nothing that happens in the office that should be quote unquote weird. Everything that happens, you should just act like, you know what, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. One of the analogies that was given to me by my original manager was the concept of a duck on water. Right? Have you ever watched a duck swim above the water? Looks smooth, right? Like totally chill. Have you ever watched what it looks like underneath?
Kicking hard.
Crazy, right? The legs are just going nuts. So that's kind of the mentality you want to have when you're interviewing people, is on the surface, calm, cool, collected, no matter what happens, you expect it, right? Somebody comes in and says, F you, you're like, oh, I was waiting for you to come in. Welcome. Like it's just totally chill and normal. Whereas inside you may be fuming or having people be like, what the hell is going on, right? I've had applicants bring in their kids and stinky diapers. I've had people come in with their parents where their parents are really skeptical. I've seen it all over the years. But the scenario where somebody comes in with their parent, what I would always recommend that you do is introduce yourself, act like it's totally normal, invite the parent back to observe. What I've experienced in most of my time is that the more open you are with letting the parents see what you do and who we are, the less skeptical they become and the more tied in to the job they ultimately end up being. So for example, when you welcome in, it's like, hey, let's get you signed in. A lot of times the parents will kind of hang back like, oh, this is their interview, I'm just kind of here. But it's not really. Otherwise, they wouldn't have shown up and come in with them, right? They would have sat in their car like any normal self-respecting parent would have done. But if they do come in, welcome. Hey, it's great to see you. You're here with David, I'm assuming. Okay, well, we're gonna get David signed in here. Okay, David, let's get you signed in. Let's have both you guys. You can come in here in the waiting area, just fill out the application for me. And then what I would do is if the parent's just kind of like, oh, I just want to meet, it's like, hey, well, it's great to see you. Hey, you're more than welcome to sit in on the interview if you'd like. And usually just the simple offering of letting them to sit in is enough for them to be like, no, we're good. Totally seems cool. Right. And in some cases, they're like, yeah, I think that'd be great. And they're appreciative of it if they are a little skeptical. So you bring them back in the pre. If you decide to keep the kid for the group interview, you let the parents sit in the back of the interview room. Usually they're on their phone or farting around, reading newspapers. They're not usually paying that much attention. But what's kind of cool is a lot of times that parent sees the penny get cut during the interview And they're like, oh man, this stuff is pretty cool. And now all of a sudden at the end of the interview, they're like, more excited about the opportunity sometimes even than their kids are, so so allowing them to be being transparent, letting them sit in, I think goes a long way. Now, I would not just say, hey, do you have any questions for me right before you start the interview? Because that could now lead to a 15, 20-minute conversation. Say, hey, you're more than welcome to sit in, on David's interview if you'd like, right? And they're like, oh, okay, and so then you allow them to do that. So allow them to sit in. Now, back up to that original point. Let's say you've got a parent and a child applying at the same time. Okay, we've had this happen before. They're both applying at the same time. Well, obviously, you want to interview them and bring them back individually. Okay, so even though you're preing them, you want to treat them both like separate applicants for the bulk of the interview. The only thing that I tend to do in that scenario is if I know it's going to be child and parent, if the parent wants the job as well, I'll sign the child, the student that we're looking to recruit, I'll sign them up for one training seminar and then the parent the week following. Okay. It's not a foolproof, perfect plan. Occasionally I'll have the parent call me back after the interview and say, hey, I noticed that my son's coming in at this time. Can I just come in then? And they say, yeah, bring them both in. But what you want to try to do, guys, is allow the child to have their own experience with us. And then based on that, if the parent wants to then come in and do the job, I'm totally cool with it. Because now their child has had some sort of level of success. They're in training, talking about how great the things are, the product is, and everything else, right? But taking that approach is important. Let's say you have two people come in together that are best buds. What do you do there?
Separate.
Yeah. So what's that? Separate them. And what I would do is just say, hey, I know you guys are applying at the same time. To really help, we do have a lot of people applying to really help your chances, now you guys kind of interview separately. We're going to have it happen during the same time. I'm going to meet with each of you guys individually. I'll be giving you each of my own decisions at the end. I may work with one of you. I may work with both of you. I may work with neither, right? But I think you don't want to bring them back together, have them sit beside each other, bring them back together at the end. You want to meet with them separately and ideally kind of separate them. So they're probably not going to sit separate when they're filling out their application. That probably won't happen. But what you could do is, and when you bring them up for the group interview, you bring them up separately. So you separate them at that moment in time. And then when you spread them out at the end, again, you spread them out so they're not sitting next to each other while they're filling out applications or filling out their acceptance criteria sheet. Okay? So you separate them out that way. In the case of the scenario where you've got, this one's tough. So let's say you're interviewing people and you want to keep one, but they've got a friend who maybe isn't that sharp. What do you do then?
Keep them. For the second part.
You definitely keep them for the second part. What else?
Did they drive together?
They rode together. We had this happen this summer where we had 3 people come together, 2 of them really sharp. One of them.
Just let all of them.
Just keep them.
Yeah.
They might not even.
Yeah. So.
They'll work his own way out.
So that's kind of the scenario. You have 2 ways you can handle it. The first way is you boot the one, but now you've created this kind of hostility, right? So could you get away with it? Sure. If they came separate, for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody comes in an interview, like another day, somebody else comes in that you're unsure of, you don't have to give them a job. But if they all came together or they're all in the same interview and they're like buds, Not like they show up and they happen to know each other. In that case, do whatever you feel like you need to do. But if they rode together, they're all there together. In the case like we had 3 people show up, 2 we were excited about. By the way, the 2 we were excited about, they ended up combining to sell about $5,000. The one that we weren't so sure about, he sold like $300. So it didn't hurt us to have that third person. But what you do want to do is whenever you accept the third person that maybe you're not as excited about, don't be afraid to just say, hey, David, I'll be honest, I didn't see exactly what I was looking for so far from you in the interview. But that being said, I'm going to give you a shot. Because I do feel like you're somebody who have given, if they worked hard, they followed our program, used our mentorship and guidance, you can really become, excellent. How does that sound? Then what you want to make sure they do is that they dress up for the interview. Okay.
Dress up for the interview or dress up for training?
For training, that's what I meant. Sorry. So make sure they really dress up. It's like, now that being said, like I said, I'm giving you a shot here. So I really want you to impress me during training. Or, hey, I really want you to impress Mr. Ketchum during training. All right. Okay. So make sure to dress professional. So like today, all right. So dress professional, wear a suit and tie. Do whatever you need to do. Like just give them some suggestions that help them present themselves as the most professional version of them. You could even say, and I've said this before, hey, I've looked at your application, I looked at your resume, and I see you don't have a ton of experience, and I could tell a lot of people haven't given you a shot. So I do want to give you a shot. I think if you worked hard, you follow our program, you can become excellent. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get you into training. Now, when you come, though, I want to make sure that you're working really hard on your assignments and you're presenting yourself the most professional as possible. So when you go through the acceptance things, you're here, it says arrive on time, wear appropriate attire. So today I saw you weren't, you're wearing kind of jeans and a t-shirt. Let's make sure, you dress it up. Do you have a professional outfit that you could wear at home? And ask him honest. Sometimes they're like, no, I don't. Be like, hey, do you have a button down with dress pants, or do you have a button down with khakis? What's the nice outfit you got? Okay, cool. Let's have you wear that to training. Because you want them stepping their game up a little bit, so that way when they present themselves, they're looking on point. Okay. Because if they're trying really hard in training, they're not going to take away from everybody else that you're training. Now if they're coming in as a distraction, that can be problematic. And I have gone so far as to take 2 friends out to the side during training and say, hey, look, I know you guys are buddies. I know you guys know each other, but I think you're holding each other back from being able to maximize your opportunity here. So can I count on you moving forward to pay attention, take a lot of notes, and to work hard in training? Cool, because it's your bank account that's going to get affected by this. This isn't like school. I'm not giving you busy work. The reason I'm doing this is to help you make money. So if you need to call somebody out, you can call somebody out. But what you don't want to do is give somebody a reason not to show because you didn't keep their money. Okay. The next little scenario that I've got for you is, let's say you have somebody go up to leave during the group interview. Okay, what do you do then?
Stop. Tell them, come with me. Take them outside and tell them the interview's over.
Cool. So, Dave and I just walked through this one, right? As if you see somebody start to kind of get their things, because everybody, when they leave, they have a look of like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Like there's always that split second where they're trying to, in their own head, make the decision as to whether or not I'm going to leave. And if you're paying attention, and usually what you see them do is they stop taking notes and they start to gather their things. They're getting things put together. And as soon as you see them start to kind of gather things and go to start standing, you just use the power finger, right? Literally just doing this is so incredibly, it kind of stops people in their tracks. And you say, yeah, David, come with me. And you just kind of, as soon as you do like that, they usually stop trying to stand up. Like, yeah, come on with me. You know, and then, and so then you walk them to the door of the interview room, or whichever is like, whatever your space is set up for, right? But usually it's a door leading out to a hallway or a door leading out to the rest of the office. You open up the door and you say, hey, David, your interview's over for the day. I wish you the best of luck with everything. Take care. And you say it, not like shouting it, but you say it where people in the interview can hear it. That individual understands that they're excused, right? Because what you don't want to do is, you don't want them like saying, just getting up and walking. And you also don't want them saying, hey, I don't want to do this job. Can I leave? Right? Because some people, they don't want to be rude, but they just don't know how to professionally act. A professional thing to do would be to take notes throughout the whole thing. When you're done, go back and meet with the hiring manager and say, you know what, I appreciate your time today, but honestly, I just don't think this is the best fit for me, right? That's the professional way to do it. But again, we're not always dealing with super professionals. So if somebody starts to get up and leave, just boom, hey, hold on 1 second, come with me. Walk them to the door. Say, hey, Mari, thanks again for your time today. Your interview's over. Wish you the best of luck.
So never take them outside of the room?
I take them to the outside where they're like leaving. So like, for example, if I was, let's see here. So like if the door was right there in the office, right? So let's say I'm sitting here and you could kind of see where the door leading out, like let's say this is the interview room and this is either the hallway or the outside of the office or just the rest of the office, but close to the front door, right? I would just simply open up the door, walk them out. Mari, and I would just do it just like this. So that way people that are there hear me controlling the situation and excusing them. Okay. And I'm also not giving them really a chance to say much either. I'm not like, hey, why'd you stop taking notes? At this point, if they're going to get up and leave, they're leaving. So you're probably not going to save them with some sort of, Q&A with them. So just let them go, but just be in control of it. And then the people that are there, they'll kind of notice it and you just kind of keep rolling. Right. And, if somebody does say something as they're walking out the door, which happens very seldom, but if they do say something, you could always say, guys, as I mentioned, we have a lot of people applying with us and, I'm not able to work with everybody, or, hey, we have to be, we work with, we want to build our team with the best types of people and clearly they're not the best fit for us, so you just kind of let them roll. But that's kind of the mentality that you take is anything that happens is supposed to happen and it's in control. Way back, old school Vector, this is kind of before my time even, we would sometimes keep a sacrificial lamb that we would boot during the interview.
Oh, no.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. Again, old school, 80s sales, like not Cutco as we know it. Before some of you guys were probably even born, that was kind of the mood. So you'd have a sacrificial lamb and about that time, you get a couple minutes in. It's like, hey, David, grab your stuff and come with me. Your interview's over. Boom. And you just excuse them, right? It's cruel and unusual punishment. We probably traumatized many young professionals way back in the day. But that's we don't do that anymore. But like I said, if somebody's rolling, just let them roll. Okay. Another thing that I think can help, guys, just from a just knowing yourself mentality. Bring a bottle or a glass of water with you into the interview room. If you're somebody who gets a dry throat a lot, there's nothing worse than trying to read through a script without being able to speak properly. And coughing or hiccuping, that doesn't help either. So just bring a bottle of water or bring a glass of water in with you. I wouldn't bring in soda or anything that could stain, right? Just water is sufficient, but bring it in with you. So that way you have something you can take a sip of whenever you need to. And then the last scenario that I've got with you is, let's say that when you get to the end of the interview, you have somebody that when filling out the acceptance sheet, they don't click yes. What do you do? When do you meet them? First, yes. Yeah, you grab them first. And so as people are filling out the acceptance sheets, you're kind of walking around looking, you're not like snooping, but you're just you're cleaning up, you're casually kind of looking at people's sheets to see if they clicked yes. And if everybody clicked yes, you're golden. Take your sharpest to your least sharp, right? If you had somebody that clicked no, or they blatantly just aren't answering it, then meet with them first. Okay. And what I like to do is I'll just usually bring them back to my office and sit down with them and then have a very quick post, meaning something along the lines of, hey, so what was your overall impression of the company? All right, well, Mari, I saw you circled that you didn't feel like this is something you'd be a good fit for, or you wouldn't want to do this. Why is that? And I just open it up and let them give me an answer. And again, if it's something simple like, well, I just don't know how good I would be, or I don't know if you should accept me or something like that, maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's not that they don't feel like they'd be a good fit. Maybe they're just nervous as to whether or not they should get the job because everybody else that's applying. That's a different type of conversation. You could still do the post. You build them up. You give them a shot, right? One of the phrases I've used is, hey, I know you're unsure. I am sure of the success of our people that work here. And I'd love to give you a shot. And the only way you're really, truly going to know if you'd be successful is if you tried. Do you really have anything to lose by giving it a shot? Okay, cool. Why don't we go ahead and get you set up for training? And you kind of go that way. But usually that's not what they're saying. It's usually not that they're shy and nervous. Usually it's that they've got some other big hang up about it, right? And if it's a big hang up that you feel is unavoidable, then just let them roll, right? Most of them are fixable, and you can work with them. Usually if they come back with you and like they filled out everything on the sheet and they just circled no, but they filled out everything else, they're usually at least open to hearing what you have to say. If somebody doesn't fill out anything at all, they're just sitting there kind of staring at you, then you're probably not going to keep them no matter what you say or what you do. So in that case, you just kind of pull them back and I would then take them out of the room, right, where nobody else can really hear you. And you just say, hey, I noticed you didn't fill anything out. Any reason why? Dude, I've done that before. And somebody's like, yeah, my pen ran into ink. And so that's why I always ask, hey, I noticed you didn't fill anything out. Any reason why? Yeah, my pen ran into ink. Oh, let me get you one. No, thank you. Right? Because, I've also had, I just don't think it's a good fit for me. Hey, man, job's not for everybody. Wish you the best of luck. Take care. There's nothing you're going to say to convince that person if they're not even going to respect you enough to fill out any of the stuff. The good news is if they fill it out and they check yes on the, do you feel like this could benefit your future? Do you feel like it's something that you could do well with? Right? If they're clicking yes to some of those, that you can build on. It's like, hey, I understand that you may not see this as a long-term career for you, but I do know when I met with you earlier, Noah, that you mentioned that you wanted to one day run your own business. You wanted to go to school for engineering and you wanted to run your own engineering firm. Do you feel like you might want to learn some of those skills before you become an engineer to see if running your own firm would be something you'd really want to pursue? Okay, cool. And then you just kind of go that route. Does that make sense? So you're using what they've given you in the pre to really work with them in the post. Any questions or any scenarios that maybe you've encountered that you want to share or ask that I can help you with? And this may be good for people that are more veteran to step up if they've had encounters that they didn't know how to handle or maybe wanted to get my take on it.
Some straight ones, I don't know.
You'll get some strained ones.
Some straight ones.
No. Cool. Okay. So, so guys, the only way that you'll encounter some of these things is as you run more interviews, right? You know, it's impossible to go over every single scenario right then and there in the moment. We could talk about some of these quote unquote fishbowl scenarios, and we'll do a lot more of this. Do you guys like those kind of this fishbowl scenarios? We'll do this with PDI. We'll do this with training. We'll do this with interviews. We'll do this with PR calling and Facebook messaging and everything else. But the biggest way to get good at something is just practicing it and then taking things on as they come and then debriefing with your manager afterwards, right? So what I mean by that is if you run an interview and you encountered a scenario and you're unsure as to whether or not you handled it right, immediately call your manager and say, hey, I got a question for you. This happened. What do you think? You know, what would you have done in this scenario, right? So, you know, like somebody came in without a car. What would you, what would you have done? They're pretty sharp. You know, they said they didn't have transportation. They took an Uber here. What would you have done in that scenario? Right? And I'd say, well, tell me about it. You know, and in most cases, if somebody doesn't have a car, but they're the right type of person, somebody who's a hard worker, somebody who has the ability to get around to places, and that you could teach them how to do an online appointment, we'd work with them. We'd want to hook them up. You know, there may be certain scenarios where that's not the case, right? But I mean, more often than not, we want to be in the business of giving people a shot and replicating the ones that we're really most excited about working with. Okay, cool. Well, gang, that's all I've got for you for tonight's TLA. We do want to make sure that you're practicing and reviewing the group interviews. So the back half of that group interview, let's make sure you're taking an hour of that this week to review that back half of the group, focusing especially on the pay and the perks, because those are the things that, you know, if you think about why people are showing, and they understand how they can get paid and they can properly explain it to their mom, because that's what mom and dad are going to ask. So what exactly you be doing? How exactly are you going to get paid, right? So they have good, confident answers for that. So the pay should be crystal clear to a third grader. And then the perks, you know, those are the things where you really kind of get people excited about their opportunities. So those are the things you want to be emphasizing as you're role playing. Next week on the 20th, so not this Saturday, but next Saturday, we're going to get your next grades in for the group interviews. So you're going to want to have, that's going to be from 10 to 3 here in the pilot, and you'll be drilling for skill the group interview. As a reminder, you don't need to have that memorized, but you do want to be confident reading it out to people, right? Meaning like explaining it, not just sitting there reading it out loud to people. So having it so where you can look down and communicate what it's saying. So be reviewing that. I would say if you look over it and say it 2 to 3 times out loud this week, you'll be doing sufficient amount of preparation to get yourself ready for next Wednesday. Next Wednesday for prep, we're going to go over some financial stuff at the beginning, and then starting to transition into health, and then drilling for skill in your local office to get yourself prepared and ready for Saturday. So. Got a killer agenda for the meeting. We're going to be going over the pay program for the branch pay. We're going to be talking about networking with building, networks in the right areas for people. We're going to be doing over only in push and preparation for that. So how to have your best only in push ever. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow here in our region. So that starts 2 weeks from tomorrow. The only in push, that is the time when the players play. And you get recognized on the main stage in front of the CEO and owner of the whole company, which is pretty dope. And then and then we're also going to talk a little bit about health and wellness. So got some good stuff on the docket for that. For next level group preparation is going to be positive intelligence debrief, and also first 10-day management. So we're talking about driving sales and driving the team builder program during the next level breakout. So we got some good stuff all involved. Wear your Halloween outfit to the prep. It'll be a little prize for best dressed for Halloween. So don't be that guy or gal that shows up, dressed in normal prep attire, right? You want to be wearing your Halloween outfit, something that you'd be comfortable sitting in for an extended period of time, right? So don't wear like a Tyrannosaurus Rex outfit because I'll make you wear it for the entirety of prep. So that's all I got, gang. Have an awesome night, and we'll talk to you soon. Remember, no excuses. Play like a champion. See you.
The green skin.